Hey, how's it going, guys?
Wow.
Great, great.
Yeah. I sorry, I gave you the wrong intro there, Nick. I
No
feel
worries
bad.
at
I
all.
got
I
myself
also
in a
noticed
foot.
it says Interpol. I'm not affiliated with Interpol myself, but we have some Interpol guys on our team.
Okay.
Yeah, Anna threw it up there. I think it was
Kind of a
it
clickbait
was interesting.
title.
Anyways,
All good,
yeah.
you know.
Okay, so tell us about your company. I'm sorry about that. It's
No worries.
Inca Digital.
Yeah, so our company is Inca Digital. We are a data analytics and intelligence provider for the digital asset space kind of generally. So what we do is kind of like go out and grab data and provide analytical tools so that people can make smart decisions within the space. Our clients kind of range the ecosystem from Forbes and the CFTC to prop shops and traders like Haymeyer Trading out of Chicago.
Awesome. And did you bring some slides, or are you doing a presentation, or did you want to do the? Okay, awesome.
I threw some slides together, but I'm happy to do however.
Yeah, I think we'll kick it off. I do have to prep for something in a little bit, but I'd love to ask you a couple questions beforehand, if that's okay with you, Nick.
Sounds good.
Good, great. Okay, so what's the website? I'm going to pull it up here, so I got a good view.
The website is inca.digital, and our product is Nakamoto Terminal, and that can be found at nterminal.com.
nterminal.com. Okay. Oops, got that. nterminal.com. All right. Pulling that up. Got it right here. Okay. Platform that delivers enterprise data. If you could pull that up, Justin, so we can kind of just show a brief overview. Thank you. nTerminal is a platform that delivers enterprise grade data and analysis across a digital asset ecosystem. So that's kind of a broad term. So can you get maybe more in the specifics, because it is all encompassing, right? So enterprise grade data, I'm assuming that it's high quality data. Obviously, like you have some kind of, pipeline that allows it to be read a lot better. I would assume something of that nature. But we could come through the docs, but I'm sure you can give me a kind of a synopsis. Like let's run. Let's reset actually a second. Let's reset. So Nick, give me some background on you. How'd you end up at this point? Where did Nakamoto Terminal come from? What brought you from, maybe a Bitcoin into Bitcoin, or a cryptocurrency, as it were, and then how'd you get here today?
Yeah, that's a good place to
that
start.
Whole spiel.
So kind of like, I guess, many of us, we all come from different places. I was, my background is in neuroscience. So I was doing neurodegenerative research, and I had helped start up a pharmacogenetics lab. So mostly science-based, but while I was in college, I had gotten interested on the side in crypto, mostly for socio-political reasons. And obviously it's just a wormhole of interesting topics. And my buddy, Zach, who is also an engineer here at Inca, introduced me to the founders, right kind of as they were starting it up as a company. And yeah, I eventually just started offloading my responsibilities at the lab and taking up more at Inca. And I've been full-time here for 2.5 years.
Fantastic. So, okay, so back to the overriding theme here. So nTerminal, enterprise grade data. What kind of use cases are you guys looking to target? I guess what makes you different from, the general market, and what are you trying to accomplish with what you built?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, it's very broad, and that's because kind of what we do is very broad. We are an infrastructure company primarily. So we build infrastructure for piping data. And the reason why we say enterprise grade data is because we are B2B only. So we don't currently have any customer facing products. Although, if you're a business and you're building a customer facing product, reach out to us, because we can help you out on the back end. Yeah, so what we primarily build are microservice modules that route data and analyze that data and facilitate any sort of transformation or intelligence on it. And that kind of expands outside of crypto even. We've taken on some recent contracts that are kind of outside of the scope of crypto, and we actually recently won the first CFTC Innovator of the Year Science Prize Award, and that was for doing something not crypto related at all. It was just natural language analysis. So our infrastructure is data neutral, but our team and our competencies are all within crypto, and that's where we focus on. So we kind of like to categorize the data that we cover within the ecosystem into 3 buckets. Also still going to be general, but the first bucket would be financial data. So pretty much everything that you would expect from centralized and decentralized exchanges, order books and executed trades. The second bucket would be technical data. So we run nodes on blockchains to allow you to see the blocks and transactions occurring there. But that also includes things like scraping GitHub repositories and getting info from mining pools and things of that nature. And then the last bucket would be natural language data, and that includes anything textual based or media that can be converted into structured text. And that can come from anywhere from social media to traditional media or regulatory decisions or just images that are posted on websites and gathered through RSS or something like that.
Absolutely. Okay, so you have 3 buckets. NLP I know is a big one right now. A lot of people talking about it specifically because there's a lot of, it's like I don't want to say it's like the advent of automated trading, but definitely advent of like openly accessible automated trading. And what I mean by that is like there's a lot of new technologies, or actually technologies that are probably more accurately coming to maturity right now, and they require large amounts of data to train. They require a lot of inputs, and for them to be able to make accurate decisions is a big thing. So I'm assuming you guys do a lot of scraping, things of this nature, of probably the entire web and all different types of things that I can think about: squawk boxes, chat boxes, everything that you could. And you probably have some good logic behind it as far as like signals and different things of this nature. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah. No, NLP as a category is extremely vast and rapidly evolving just with the technologies that are at our disposal. So pretty much every month I feel like we're doing like a massive upgrade, and we're adding new types of analytics on top of our feeds. But the kinds of things that I think are really give our users something actionable are things that can add intelligence and allow you to look at large amounts of noise and distill a signal out of it. So things like topic modeling, sentiment analysis, entity recognition, those are ways that you can kind of parse through a sea of noise and get actionable results. So if you want to know the amount of times on a particular subreddit that this individual gets mentioned, or that all individuals associated with a specific company get mentioned, those are the kinds of insights that you can get from our data.
And this might be outside of the topic, of your company's purview or like scope, right? Or outside of scope of your company's concerns on this matter. But do you think so? I think NLP is like a great idea. It might be being used in some kind of functions as I see it now, like maybe that's growing, but I think it might be used a lot more than I would believe it is, right? So I think that companies are probably using it widespread to a degree. But in my brain, for some reason, I feel like this is still something that's emerging and really isn't implemented. But I think I'm actually completely wrong about that. The more that I think about it, I think companies actually have implemented this. It is a major part of what they're doing now. And I'm just behind the times because this is not my area of focus specifically within development. And because I went so deep down the blockchain rabbit hole, I don't think I consider, they have to be, because, there's all these different mechanisms for filtering now, but I don't think it really hit me until like right this exact second how big of a category that is. Would you say that my assumption is correct? It's very widely used right now.
I would say kind of your both assumptions are probably right, in different places. So I mean, companies that are doing social network companies like Twitter and Facebook's, I mean, they've been doing this stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
And financial institutions have kind of, obviously with blockchain and just fintech in general has been exploding in recent years. But I mean, they were ripe for disruption and they were kind of slow to adopt in some ways. But yes, it's definitely, widely used technology all over the place.
Yeah, I don't think I've been demoed something in NLP, probably because it's above my pay grade in a lot of aspects in a while, and they probably keep that pretty close to the chest as far as what they're doing there, and their specific mechanisms for filtering and all this stuff is probably very covered IP. My assumption definitely was, government been doing it since whenever they could, right? I don't know when that started, but national security concerns, that whole boom, early 2000s, Patriot Act, all that stuff, they probably ramped that up quite significantly, and the technology's improved, and now it's like, the commercial markets, obviously innovating as well, probably surpassed some of the stuff that they're doing in, traditional government type stuff, like at the NSA and stuff. I think that the commercial markets, as far as our I don't want to say government in general, but like even like the top of the top.
And a lot of the time they innovate. I feel like the commercial markets innovate and the government can do things at scale that no one else can. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Time and resources, time, material resources, they always win that battle. But what I am seeing now is I think it's permeating all aspects of life. And I feel like, specifically with all these machine learning projects that are out there, Elon Musk's and, Bezos has, everybody has one, but it's becoming an increasing concern. And to the point where I think like this year versus last year, we would have seen a substantial jump in the use in many areas. Like if we would have talked about this a year ago, it'd be a completely different story. And it's probably come that far and that quick in adoption. With that, you think that would also be correct?
Yeah, I would say in the last handful of years, the amount of accessibility to these tools has really increased. So now pretty much anybody can go and find services that will essentially let you leverage these massive models that have been trained on enormous data sets from AWS or Microsoft or wherever. So now you're really starting to see individual developers and small teams be able to leverage these tools that otherwise would have also required some scale.
Yeah, that's one of those categories as a developer. Like, I'm always an interested guy, and I kind of like, hop into a lot of aspects. Actually, more recently, I've been doing very little development, if any, just because of the blockchain center and everything else that we've been doing. It's more like, setting up teams, everything like that. But the it has been popping up, and I have a tendency to go real deep into it, like, the data and everything else and what's required. And then it just ends up being like 2 days later and I didn't get anything done. And I'm just learning stuff and I'm still like not anywhere near where I need to be. So like, I really rely as a developer, I think, on APIs and people that have built stuff and frameworks and, for that to catch up to me at this point, because you try to catch up to some people, you just can't. Like I'm never going to catch up to Eric and NLP, work with DARPA and all these other places, doing projects. So I do understand the importance for really good data, commercial grade data where you can make these decisions. And I understand that there's a lot of secret sauce that goes into it. And for the developers watching, I definitely, I'm not the guy to talk about this in any way, shape, or form, but I will say, the demand that I've seen, in the past several years, like data specialists, data crunching is it's a huge market. And I think what you guys do and, the quality of the data and how you sort and everything else is a really important component too. Nick, I'm gonna leave you. I probably will hop back on in a little bit, but I'd like for you to have the opportunity to do your presentation. I don't want to have you run over. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, and I'll probably try and get Eric on here to talk a little bit at the end of it, and we'll see if we can get him on to talk about NLP and everything else.
Sounds great. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you so much, Nick.
All right.
Yep. So you just need to do a screen share to the bottom.
Yeah. All right. Can you guys see that okay now?
Let me pull this up for you. Okay. Oh, that
It's
is
probably a little bit of
okay.
inception there.
Yep. All good. All right. I'll go ahead and lead you
All
to it
right.
here.
Awesome. Cool. So thanks everybody at the Blockchain Center, especially Anna, for having me on here. It's definitely an awesome opportunity. And I mean, you guys have been running like almost all day for the last 2 days, so keep it up. It's great. So again, just to reintroduce Inca and myself, I'm Nicholas Gans, and I'm the Director of Research and Development here at Inca. Inca Digital is a data aggregation and analytics company. So we provide intelligence about cryptocurrencies and kind of the peripheral markets, just generally. I included the logos of some of our clients over here on the right. We provide data to Forbes, the CFTC, ErisX, which is an exchange, but also to some traders. So the use cases for cryptocurrency data are pretty obviously broad. And we see ourselves as kind of a boutique enterprise grade data shop. So our clients come to us with a goal, and then we help tailor a solution for them. And we're always integrating new data sources and adding new intelligence modules. So we've been growing very rapidly. We started about 3 years ago. I joined about 2.5. And yeah, now we've got a team of about 15 people. Maybe just to give the background story of our company, the 2 guys floating on floaties there on the left, those are the co-founders, Adam Zarazinski and Evgeny Dmitry. They met back in Interpol doing criminal intelligence work, and they went their separate ways. But Ev was doing network security for the Bank of France, and Adam went to the Air Force and became a judge advocate general. But on the side, they got interested in crypto and started kind of using their competencies from doing open source intelligent work for Interpol to start doing some essentially like arbitrage, basic arbitrage within the crypto space. As 2017 started coming along and they could tell that more large players were getting into the space, they realized that their arbitrage opportunities weren't going to last forever, and it would be a better idea to sell shovels rather than dig for gold. So that's kind of what they did. They started building out a product which we call Nakamoto Terminal, or N Terminal for short, which is kind of like the Bloomberg terminal for enterprise cryptocurrency data. We are a remote company, so you can see we've got meetup locations around the world, and we do almost all of our work online. So luckily for us, we weren't as disrupted as I know many companies were with this crazy year and COVID-19. So the large problem that we kind of hope to solve is just the fact that the digital asset ecosystem is extremely complicated, it's extremely new, and it's extremely quickly growing. There's lots of noise, there's lots of rumors, there's lots of FUD, and it's really difficult to make decisions in this space and do them with high confidence. So we really want to integrate data from all over the place, all types of data, and put them all in one place and provide the tools necessary to operate effectively within the space. So a little bit about our infrastructure. As I said before, we're a data company, but what we build is infrastructure. Our infrastructure is based on a microservice architecture using Spring Cloud Dataflow. And using a microservice architecture is really, really advantageous because it allows us to develop asynchronously, and it allows us to very flexibly modify specific services and add new sources pretty rapidly. As I was speaking with Adam beforehand, the kind of broad categories of data are financial, technical, and natural language. But those are very broad, and there's essentially an infinite number of alt data sets, and we're always trying to go out and scrape new ones. So our infrastructure has three main types of modules, and those are the source modules, the processor modules, and the sinks. And the sources are kind of self-explanatory. Those are going to be plugging into places like blockchain nodes or RSS feeds or APIs. And then our processor modules are going to be doing all of the normalization, enriching, and filtering of that data. They all pass it along to our storage and off to our sinks, where our clients can essentially tell us how they want the data packaged, and we can serve it up to them. So some of our clients, they consume data via data dumps on Amazon. We just recently announced a partnership where you can consume all of our feeds through the Amazon AWS marketplace. And some of our other clients use APIs, which they have us custom tailor. Other ones use Splunk, which we have a partnership for, as kind of an end-to-end full solution. Sorry. Okay, so that's kind of a lot about how we do things. And the use cases, as I mentioned before, are quite broad. But just to start, one of the interesting use cases for kind of merging all of these disparate data sets into one place is to monitor the ecosystem and to run investigations into the ecosystem to try and discover fraud, scams, and things of that nature. We have a lot of clients who use us for regulatory compliance, but then we also are a data provider to various security regulators around the world. So what I have here shown on the screen are a few different metrics, not to single any exchanges out, but I just picked a couple from a recent analysis that one of our investigation analysts did. So on the top left here, you can see trade size distributions. This is a pretty commonly known metric where you take over a period of time all of the executed trades reported by an exchange through their APIs or scraped from their web page, and you show the distribution of the size of the trades. So on the y-axis there, you have count, and on the x-axis, you have size. And Bitwise in their SEC ETF proposal kind of popularized this as a metric to be used for identifying falsified data or potential wash trading activity happening on a platform. So whenever you see something that looks outside of a normal-esque distribution, it's something to be wary of. And it's not necessarily indicative that the exchange itself is participating in bad activity, although it could be. But it also could just be bots that are using that exchange to pump the volume up of their own token or a token which they have been paid off to try and inflate the volume for. Some of these other metrics that you can see here, on the top right is a proprietary algorithm which just tries to estimate the amount of inflated volume coming from a particular exchange at a given time. And then on the bottom left, you can see this is bids and asks queried for a very specific size. So in this case, it is 0.4 Ethereum to USDT. And that very specific size, you can see here, it's very abnormal to see like a massive spike during a specific period of time where asks and bids are posted almost simultaneously in large quantities. And you can see over here on the right, that box is highlighting the 0.4 ETH range over the same period of time. So you can see how much it stands out in comparison to the other sizes being traded for that ETH to USDT pair. Okay, on the same note, there are lots of other metrics, but just to give another one is comparison of leading digit distributions. So leading, second, or third digit. What do I mean by that? When I post a bid or an ask and it turns into an executed trade, let's say I'm trading 1.2 Bitcoin, the leading non-zero digit would be 1, and the second non-zero digit would be 2. And if we take an aggregate number of trades that occur in a given period of time, we can show a distribution of the number of trades which have a leading 1 or a leading 2, and so on. And what Benford's law states, in specific types of naturally occurring data sets, you expect to see an uneven distribution of these leading digits. So you expect to see about 30% of the data events to have a leading 1, and about 18 or so percent to have a leading 2, and so on. And the reason for that is just because you're more likely to have numbers falling in 1 at the beginning rather than 9, because just of the way that naturally occurring numerical data sets work that are either pertaining to a size or quantity. And what you can do is query, kind of like we did with some of the past images, all of the executed trades, and show for the size of those executed trades, the leading numbers and their distributions, and compare across exchanges or pairs. So another kind of use case of our data in a different category now, using natural language data, would be kind of noticing events through the mentions of specific entities. So one of the things that our natural language modules do is they extract potential names of individuals or organizations or locations. And because you have this parsed out intelligence from the text, you can then query the number of mentions, and you can do those queries by other metrics. So you could query the mentions of a given exchange by the author of that text, or by the reporting venue, or by the site at which that text was parsed from. And what we see here is back when Justin Sun had acquired Steemit, and there was all this drama way back before the fork, but right after the acquisition, when there was drama from the Steemit community and the Steem community, and we can see here mentions for the keyword Steem spike right at the time of this announcement of the acquisition, and the co-mentions of other parsed out organizations map onto the exchanges here that were affiliated with providing Justin Sun Steem tokens to be used as governance votes on his takeover of the blockchain. So natural language analysis is a great way that you can spot kind of breaking events in real time, or go back and analyze things and try and parse out, what the community was feeling or saying, and who was being mentioned and how, and by whom. So that last kind of and most broad category of data that I said we cover is technical data, and that includes things like blockchain data itself, but also blockchain metadata. So here you can see a cluster map in Splunk where we are querying all of the public nodes that our node has identified, and by the service provider. So this is an interesting way that you can try and analyze, how many nodes are actually being run on AWS servers versus Google servers, and so on, and where can we identify them as being located. As with many metrics, this is not a perfect one, but it's useful nonetheless to try and get an idea of where Bitcoin users are and the types of Bitcoin users that you have in different geographic locations. Here we see some data queried from, I believe, an article that I wrote in Forbes around the time of the halvening. So the Bitcoin halvening is, of course, when the distribution of Coinbase rewards to miners gets cut in half, which happens every 4 years. And here you can see this green line actually shows the average total block reward. So that includes both the Coinbase reward that is paid directly to miners, as well as all of the fees that are included within transactions in those blocks. And we can see the time of the halvening denoted by this steep drop off where it gets cut in half from around 12.5 to around 6.25 Bitcoin. And we can see the price and moving average of Bitcoin over this time. And then what we've done here is we've queried all of the blocks by height on the x-axis and the time which it took to mine that block on the y-axis. And in red, you see all the blocks pre-halvening, and in yellow, you see all the blocks post-halvening. And then on the bottom here, we have an averaged amount. So you can see that there's slight increased volatility after the halvening, and that occurs because there is an adjustment in which miners are profitable pre and post halvening. And so this is an interesting way to kind of query all the raw data and derive some intelligence out of that to see how stable the network is after a supply shock like that. The last category of data here is blockchain data itself. So CipherTrace is one of our partners, and they provide us with risk scores and attribution data, but we also just scrape public attributions that we can find or things off of the dark web, and layering that on top of the actual raw blockchain data, you can try and trace transactions. And you can see on the bottom right here, a sand key diagram, which is kind of following the flow of transactions. And I believe this diagram was from the Twitter hack that occurred at the beginning of the year when prominent Twitter accounts such as Obama were posting links to or Bitcoin addresses and links saying, you know, the common double scam. If you send me Bitcoin, I'll send you double the amount back. And this is tracing the funds of all of the addresses which sent money to that address and where it went afterwards. So this is very important work for law enforcement when they're trying to track down terrorist financing. But it's also important for companies which are trying to be in compliance. And I know there's a lot of controversy around blockchain forensics, but overall, I think that it's kind of a necessary evil of the space maturing. And yeah, you can't really have a money that's being used to fund scams or fund terrorist events without expecting law enforcement to get involved. So yeah, that's all that I have on the slides, but I'm happy to take any questions. And I know that Adam might be hopping back on to chat in a little bit as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really interesting. You know, Eric was actually working on some NLP as well. I know he was trying to sample kind of what you were showing off with the like IBM Watson-esque, I think, design for your front end is really interesting. And I know that's something that he's unfortunately out and about right now and not able to hop on the stream. I'm going to see if Adam may join us again also, as far to ask some additional questions and follow up. Was that the rest of the presentation?
That was all that I had.
Okay, sure.
Kind of thrown on slides, but yeah.
Yeah, let me see if Adam can hop on again as well, and if he has any other questions for you. It would have been really excellent if Eric hopped on with that, but he's just unfortunately not available at this time, which is understandable. But I think it's definitely like what you're presenting, because he's shown me some of what he was working on with one of his projects. It's not public yet that he's working on, but it does use NLP and blockchain. And again, like similar to like that IBM Watson style map as well, where everything's like interconnected, which I think is important in the space for tracking all that. I know you even have like the user wallet tracking, I think you mentioned.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like to talk with him afterwards as well.
Yeah, maybe we can set something up for after this. Let me see if Adam is coming on, coming back here. Sorry, doing a little bit of production and
no, it's all good.
Everything. So it's
and you guys are probably getting
9 hours and 30 minutes.
I know.
So this is day 2. Yesterday was 12 hours. So it's just we plan on having more of these in the future. Maybe not quite as long. Maybe we'll do a 24-hour one. Who knows? For that. Is there anything else that you wanted to add specifically as far as Inca Digital? I think Adam's just getting ready now.
No, all I would say is you can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn. Our whole company currently uses Keybase, so you can find all of us there.
Okay.
And my email is nicholasgans@inca.digital. So anybody can feel free to reach out with any questions or input.
Excellent. So Adam's there he is. Back with us now again.
Yeah, I was trying to charge my AirPods because I don't want like the echo to happen. Yeah. And like I was hoping that I could get enough time in from there to there, but somebody called me. Anyways, it's just been all day, So are we going for the rest of the hour here? We're gonna tighten that up?
I believe we do have the rest of the hour.
Okay.
As far as
no, I mean, like, I was just curious. Okay.
Sorry, I think I probably rambled through quicker than.
No, it's okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. Like, there's a lot of questions I have, and I was trying to get Eric on. That's like it was buying time, trying to locate him. But this is like really up his domain. And I actually had a question for the different type of technology stack. I didn't believe you went too in depth on that. I was just kind of curious if you were open to sharing it. Like, you guys using Rust? Are you guys using what are you using for your machine learning and maybe some broad topics about just like maybe a tech stack? Like, is that D3 you guys are using for the graphing on that one page that you had? I would assume.
So for all of the visualizations that I showed on the presentation are coming from Splunk Enterprise. Splunk is primarily been used as a log management and IT security tool, but it's really an open and flexible platform, primarily for event-based data. And I encourage everybody to check it out because Splunk Enterprise is pretty awesome. So that's what we use as a front end, but it also has a lot of other capabilities. You can run scripts and call on models directly within there. As far as our tech stack goes, we code almost all of our modules in Java. We still have maybe some leftover Python modules, but we use Spring Cloud Dataflow as kind of our framework. So it's all microservices. Yeah. And if you have too detailed questions, I might not be the best guy. Okay. I can do a little bit.
Me? I think you're the guy. I think you have to be the guy. You're the one here. I'm gonna find a question that's really hard.
I'm no infrastructure engineer, that's for sure.
No, I mean it's super cool. I mean, you guys. So like one of the things, like this is very utilitarian. This tool is made to, obviously like built for high volume. You guys are written in Java, and it's just interesting to me. Like, I was always curious, like how the the biggest tech companies like that are really in this infrastructure game, right? It's like kind of hard to like make it sexy, right? And like, pitch it and pack it and sell it to somebody. It's like, hey, look, we have this awesome, cool data platform. It's like, it's really hard. So like those challenges rather are really interesting to me. So the end terminal, as it were, like this is one of Inca Digital's products, right? Do you guys have any other products that you guys do, or is this like the primary focus of the entire network right now?
I would say that's our primary focus, but we have Yache, which is essentially a standalone product of just all of our natural language capabilities, which can be kind of adapted to any use case. So like if a client comes to us and they have something completely unrelated to crypto, but they just want sentiment analysis, entity recognition, optical character recognition, all these things, then Yache is kind of our product for that. And then we have Upana, which is a agent-based modeling effort, kind of leveraging all the data that we aggregate through N-Terminal and building out a model of agents and groups and ecosystem through that.
Awesome. And for your end terminal, like, so you mentioned that non-blockchain projects really we're starting to pick up on it, right? But you guys have a core competency in blockchain, and this is where you really want this tool ultimately, and what you envisioned like it would really take off in is the blockchain space. But it turns out that there's a slew of other industries that need the exact same thing, and you were able to sell it. So I find that really interesting because that makes you somewhat of a bridge product, right? So you're serving two markets, but it just so happens that like this is some blockchain innovation derived, right? Not necessarily, but I'm saying from your focus and where you guys were targeting, this is something that blockchain was trying to create, and it just like ended up becoming like a much bigger thing. So tell me about that experience a little bit. I feel like that has to be pretty interesting, coming from your perspective. It's like, quarterly reports, got to get the money in the door. Like what do we got? And I can see the panic. I've been in that situation, especially with startups. I think most people have. It's like, oh my God, we have to think big. We have to go, we have to figure out, well, what else can we be used for? Right. Is that like more of the scenario?
Actually,
that went down?
It was kind of the opposite. We were just really lucky where what happened was some of our clients who were using us for blockchain analytics, they were showing other members of other divisions. So I can't talk about what client, but there was one regulatory client where their entire crypto division was using us for all their analytics and kind of due diligence on companies. And then they introduced us to some of the enforcement people, and because they had something that was touching crypto, but those people were saying, oh, well, we want this just in general. And so they started giving us requests outside of crypto, and it kind of led to us realizing, oh, okay, so, we had, I think, naively assumed a lot of the things that we were doing for the space were already being done for all these institutions, all their other operations. But that's not always the case. And so we've been able to expand within the organizations that we provide to kind of that way.
That's phenomenal. So I'm assuming like institutional, like we're talking like more government agencies really probably would like to use it. I don't want to get too specific because I understand, but I definitely could see the I don't want to get shot later on. It's okay. But no, I mean I think as far as a use case, like and NLP and everything else, government has a lot of interest, right? We have laws. Sometimes they get broken. They have to investigate before they bring any charges or anything, and they have to like really look into a company or person and see kind of like what's going on. So this comes into effectiveness. So I always have this argument, people, and I don't think I'm smarter than the system. Like people can track me walking. I'm sure they can identify me. I'm sure there's a lot of things that they can do. But like my biggest argument for people is like, oh, we could track everybody. We found this guy. It's like, all right, but if you take something like and I'm not going to get too much. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about like tumblers and stuff on here at this point in time. I don't know anything about them, but no, I mean, it's like an important thing for me for pseudo anonymity, where regardless of what my stance is, like, I don't want bad things happening. I want, the world to be a good place. I really despise a lot of nefarious behavior. But this is the argument that I always make. It's like, hey, look, this is just the way it is with blockchain. I can't change it even if you ask me to. I have no involvement in it. This thing exists. I really want to help people catch bad guys too. And when I say bad guys, I'm talking like detestables. There's really bad people out there, and this is an important thing. And I think that's part of like responsible blockchain is just acknowledging the problem and saying, hey, look, yeah, we value freedom and everything else, but also there's definite sets of rules that generally, if you're a human being in society, you have to abide by. And this is like 90% of what I'd like to target, right? And I'd like for the free domain and everybody else to leave me alone. And as long as I don't flag these things, that's good. Yeah, I should be left alone, right? But like extrapolating to that point, I do understand law enforcement's necessity, if you will, to stop bad actors in our world, right? The other component is I do think there's holes in trying to track people. And this is from my technical understanding. This is from my, my programmatic understanding. And sometimes I debate people that, whether I'm teaching a course or something, I'm talking about the implications. Like, no, we can track them 100%. I'm like, all right, Ranger Rick, listen, the reality is as good as you think you are. Okay. I know better. Right. And it usually becomes a very heated debate because they're like, no, we're there. Or somebody who doesn't know about technology and says, oh, no, we're there. The pseudo-anonymity component affords you an opportunity to go the anonymous route, even if you're on Bitcoin. And this is the case that I make. So there is behavioral patterns that you can track. But I guess like say I use something like a really effective means of tumbling or something like this, right? And I'm aware enough, right? And I do some of the right things. I mean, and there's tons of things you can do. And if I was going in on it and I don't slip up, there's a good chance that there's no way to detect me, right? And this is something I try to make an argument for. And I'm not saying it because it's a good thing. I'm saying it because actually, if you're a really bad dude, that still exists. I just don't want people to have a false sense of, hey, look, we can identify everybody. So I wanted you're in this area, and I just kind of wanted to hear your, being an expert in this specific area, kind of what your insight was to that and kind of how far the technology is. And do you think we're ever going to be able to track everybody, eventually with enough data and everything? Or do you think it's kind of like there's black holes that pop people off and they pop back on other places? Love to hear your insight.
Yeah. I mean, first off, philosophically, my company and all of our employees, we don't, have this vision that, people who say, that there shouldn't, or that there should be privacy, have something to hide. Like privacy is a right that we should all be afforded, and we don't want everything being collected on everybody and everybody to be able to query everything. I mean, that's a security concern first and foremost. And secondly, on whenever you have data and those people who are very confidently saying, we can track everything, it's already there, we know who did X, Y, and Z. A lot of the time there's data there and it's misleading. So people think that they actually have, a geolocation for this individual, but that data is actually misleading. So there's things like the dandelion protocol where I'm going to send a transaction, but first it's going to route via onion routing protocol and then show up at a different IP and look like it originated near that IP. So if there's law enforcement and they're just going to go off the fact that the first node that sent this transaction to other nodes was located in this region, they're going to be off on the wrong trail. So there's lots of, and there's many more obfuscation methods. You mentioned wallet mixing, but there's mechanisms of just transacting private keys. So I could have ownership of a Bitcoin wallet, and you could have ownership of a Bitcoin wallet, and we could exchange the private keys. And now, even though the Bitcoin funds haven't moved, they've switched ownership. So I think that I have the same wallet from my KYC'd individual, and it's never transacted, but that's not actually the case. So people should definitely be wary of what their data states and not extrapolate further. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I think that that's also an issue. So like the person that I think is on the other end is like, yes, we actually absolutely, we know exactly who it is. Like I can tell you from my background and some of the things that I've experienced, some of the things I've researched, some of the things I've never actually, violated anything or done anything nefarious, but like, part of becoming a talented developer, DevOps, security expert is actually kind of understanding, what's going on. I don't claim to be a security expert for that exact reason. There's some times where, I'm bewildered, but I do know enough to know that, you can just as easily drive somebody else's computer. You know what I mean? And they never know what the hell hit them. People don't even understand. I mean, I think it was the NSA or the CIA or somebody, one of the alphabet boys, and they had a back door into like Windows, like and for like the longest time, and they didn't tell anybody because they like knew they had it and they could get in everywhere. And then like somebody else exploited it, and then like it came out that like they used like NSA research or something like that had identified this back door. They used it against everybody. I think it was the 0-day attack. What was it? WannaCry or something like that, where it was like huge. I don't want to say it was WannaCry, but I feel like it was. Overnight, because the NSA thought they had one in, didn't report a security concern. I don't want to give the NSA a bad name if it wasn't them. So let's just fill in the blank. ABC agency. They by not reporting the security concern to Windows, they left millions of Americans vulnerable to some kind of malware that leaked information, had them get really hurt. And that I feel like that's like the government's never really held accountable for these things. And in my opinion, I think it's like it's kind of a rough thing. So like we give them a lot of technology, and sometimes more often than not, in my experience, even with companies, is that like the guy that developed it and understands the security concerns and everything else hands it off to somebody else who decides to use it in a way that it was either not intended to be used or doesn't understand the implications of using it in that manner. And I feel like, we look at this guy that was doing the election votings who quit or fired. I don't know what happened. It's like the guy is saying everything completely accurate when I hear him talk, right? And then it's like, okay, well, who did what with what he had, and like how was it changed, right? So one of the things that wait, what was that?
So this is actually written by someone from Inca Digital.
Yeah.
A Hacker Noon. This was December
Is this what I'm
15th.
talking about right now? They're talking about this exact same thing.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Wow, I love devs. I love it. All right. Yeah. So, but I mean,
so this is kind of this is where like election results meets blockchains and problems with like Oracle problems, which are obviously cropping up everywhere in DeFi.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I mean, I'm ranting a little bit, but I know you had a little bit to talk, so I'm just kind of like rolling with the thoughts. So and I'll go back before to what I was saying. Privacy is real. I don't think I met anybody that doesn't say privacy is a real concern. I mean, I think we all pretty much agree on the merits. Probably a couple people that have an extremist viewpoint. Hey, look, you should have to surrender everything. But most people that are in blockchain kind of understand that, you should have ownership over your own data, things of this nature, sovereignty, if you will, over yourself and kind of what you have. But, then it poses the question of, how well should we be tracking individuals? I do think we should have software like this in place, but I guess like what are the implications and how widespread is it going to be used? Because most people will fall under the purview of being able to be identified and think that they may be synonymous. I think that that's kind of their responsibility to understand that that's not the case. But also, I do think that, it's kind of a touch and go. Like the government does do widespread surveillance. It's very known that they're doing all kinds of stuff. Is somebody sitting and watching you? Probably not anybody paranoid watching a screen. There's probably not somebody, it goes into a different type of thing. But just wanted to hear your thoughts on that and kind of, what's government's role in this, from your perspective? Are they like kind of responsible for this type of stuff that you guys build and hand it off to them? Or do you think that in your experience working with government agencies, I guess, and I don't want to put you too much on the spot, it seems like they have knowledgeable people on staff, probably more so now than they did 10 years ago, right? So it's probably changing. Yeah,
well, I would say that, I mean, all of this technology, both just on data analytics and with blockchain, it kind of affords us this possibility, one dystopian possibility and one, really awesome future where we are able to actually have transparency into organizations where we want to know, and we want to make sure that groups are held accountable, because we've seen the problems that governments and companies, when they're able to get away with these things. So I think that the ability to have traceability and kind of for organizations, but also privacy for individuals is extremely important. And that's kind of what we want to shape. You know, we want to be part of this developing world. And yeah, you can see what happens when that exact thing is flipped, and there's no oversight over organizations, and there's complete oversight over individuals. And that's when, you know, power just starts corrupting, and, you know, you can come in. I don't know how Edward Snowden put it, but it's like this flick of a lever when the wrong guy gets elected, or the wrong incentives are put in place for people to just be oppressed. So what we need to do is really think collectively as a society about who and how should we be monitoring. And I mean, it's just like, these are really tough questions, and there's obviously like nuances there.
Yeah, just take an opinion, you know, and not even like a broad opinion. This is more like, you know, some insight, I guess, because you're the guy, you know, you're the guy dealing with this more often than I do. I mean, my main concern is evangelizing blockchain so that people like you build things like this. But, you know, it's because I think there is other uses of it than just monitoring people. There's a lot more, actually. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of think about scenarios where it's possible to trace an individual only if certain criteria is hit. Like automatically, this will be able, you know, the certain information that may help us identify who owns a wallet can be given over, and in this certain way, only when, you know, a federation allows it, or only when you know, there's certain data that proves that there's likelihood that individual was involved in something fraudulent. So we can kind of construct these really interesting ways, especially with, you know, smart contracts and decentralized Oracle systems, where security is more dynamic than this black or white. You know, it's out in the open, or it's completely encrypted, and you know, you need a, you know, have a supercomputer. So
I mean, I think you know, and I'll go on a personal note here, and like, you know, this isn't a perfect viewpoint, I think, from my aspect, but like, you know, I always thought about, like, I guess, like, when we're thinking about this, the best traditional models we can think about is like, hey, look, you know, I'm you know, part of the food and game department, whatever it is, right? And you bagged your lobsters instead of putting them in boxes. And I think this is like a famous case. I think it's like, what do you mean? I've been doing this for 20 years. Like, I put the lobsters in bags instead of a box, you know? And somebody's trying to make a case or a thing. And next thing you know, every judge looks at it and grunts. You know, they keep appealing it because they have so much money and so many weapons, and the guy wants a conviction, right? And what ends up happening, obviously, is this guy spent, you know, his whole life savings, his company, defending himself, and then has to plead guilty to something that he's like, oh shit, I can't fight it anymore. You know, it's like, it's over. And I mean, these things will probably still happen. They've been happening since the beginning of time, right? But, you know, my contention with it was, you know, look, you got to kind of make it fair game here. Like, you can't spend, you know, if this guy only spends 80 grand on defense, you can't spend $40 million trying to put him away if he doesn't have that, you know? And I'm not saying it in the same type of instance, but I do think these things tend to take on a life of their own. One decision here sets a precedent, leads to another decision. So it's just always something that, like, is a concern of mine. Yeah, and realistically, I'm not like the one world order guy. I don't think people, you know, go out and, you know, just, you know, the government included, just isn't like, there's no somebody sitting in a box just watching you, waiting for you to fuck up. Like, you know, like that's a dream. But what I'd like to do, I guess, is just sum it up with, you know, I think what you're doing is interesting. I think that it has a bunch of implications in other types of technologies, not just government. And I think that, you know, it's a really important thing for the future as far as being able to monitor organizations, as you say, so we don't have nefarious characters that are, you know, doing bad stuff. I'd like to give you like the last couple of minutes here, just kind of like, where do we follow you guys? You know, where do we keep up to date and progress? I didn't realize we were running short on time, by the way, Justin. So I might have crunched everything that I was trying to get into in like a half second. But please, Nick.
It's all good. No, thank you guys both, and thanks everyone at the Blockchain Center for having me. I really appreciate it. I know you guys are putting in the long hours, so hopefully you can rest up and enjoy the holidays. You can find us at Inca.Digital, and we're on social media. So just look us up. I'm Nicholas Gans, and yeah, really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Take care.